Well, hello, my friend, and welcome back to another episode of Legacy Farmer, the podcast. This is your host, J.C. Young, and today's topic of discussion is this: nobody is going to save you. So one of my old friends posted just had a new post on Facebook yesterday, and he asked a very simple question. He said, "Attention entrepreneurs." He goes, "I'm curious of those of you that have had to overcome some massive obstacles in your entrepreneurial journey. What was the biggest lesson along the way, and what was the turning point really for you?" And the first lesson that came up for me, and pretty much the only lesson, and the most powerful lesson for me that I've had in my past 6 years of being an entrepreneur after leaving the bank was coming to the realization that nobody is going to save me. Now, I say that, and it seems like, oh yeah, well, no duh, that's something easy. Well, guys, you have to consider the journey that it takes somebody to that person has to walk in order to get to that ultimate revelation. Because here's the deal: if you're working on the family farm operation right now, like where I grew up, you're used to having things done for you. You're used to having a safety net. You're used to having a cushion there. You're used to having your bills paid and food on the table and all these types of things. When I was working in the banking industry, I had a safety net. I had a decent salary at the time and never had to worry about bills being paid or anything like that. So there was no risk, guys. There was no risk. And I think for a lot of people, when they first, venture out on their own and they truly remove the safety net, they truly have nothing to fall back on, that's when they really struggle. And that's when I really struggled too, from like 2016 to 2018. I left the banking industry in 2016. But for that 2 to 3 year period there, I was trying a bunch of different things. But ultimately, at the end of the day, my friend, I was looking for businesses and partners that would ultimately step in and save me, because I had stepped into this new world where all the risk was on me. And, I wasn't making money. I hadn't figured out how to really serve my purpose and an industry that I care about in this world yet. I hadn't figured out how to grow my business yet in marketing and advertising, sales and systems and processes and all that stuff. And, when you're in that position, you got to look again at how you've been conditioned for your entire life. And most of us have been conditioned to where we're just used to having things done for us, right? We're used to having that cushion there and used to having mom and dad or grandpa and grandma there to cover our rear ends if we make a mistake. Well, the thing is, a lot of family farms today are going out of business, and this is just the reality. Over 100 family farms, these are generational family farms, go out of business every year. At least that's what the data shows. And you really have to think about why that is. Like, why is it? Why was one person able to build it? The second person, most of the time, is able to grow it a little bit, and the third person ultimately loses it. Now, sometimes it's the second generation that loses it well, but why does that happen? Like, truly think about that. Why does that happen? And in my opinion, from my experiences and my perspective on things, it's literally because that second and third generation has always had a safety net. Always had a safety net. They never got to experience an environment where they didn't have something or someone to fall back on. And when you're not exposed to that environment, you're constantly expecting to be saved. You really are. And so there was a turning point for me in 2018 where I finally accepted the simple fact that nobody was going to save me. And I honestly, when I look back at it, I think it was God really finally teaching me the lesson. He put all these obstacles in my path and made life really painful for me it wasn't him that made it painful. It was the decisions I was making that made it painful and me not accepting that nobody was going to save me. But he took me on a specific journey to make me come to that realization that, hey, Jace, it doesn't matter how hard you try, my friend. If you really want what I have planned for you, nobody's going to save you. You are going to have to accept that there's no safety net here, that whatever results you produce inside of your life are produced from your work ethic, from you going out and doing it. Nobody's going to step in and save your ass like you've been conditioned to believe your whole life. And guys, if our family feed yard was still up and running right now, I guarantee you I'd be back there. I'd probably be making 50, 60 grand a year. And, I would not have near the skill sets that I have right now. I would not have near the perspective that I have right now. I would still be expecting my dad to save me. My granddad passed away in 2015, so my dad would be managing the feed yard still. I'd still be expecting dad to save me. Here I am, 32 years old, expecting, your 65-year-old father to save you. And I say that lightly because I'm not actually in that position, but there are tons of farmers that are in that position. I know guys that are in their 50s and 60s, and their parents are in their 80s and 90s, and they still expect them to save them. So the reason I bring this up, guys, is because when we're stepping into this world, and if you're really struggling right now, just consider the fact that you're a lot like I was, where you're constantly looking for somebody to save you. And, like even with the members that are coming into Legacy Farmer, some of them are second and third generational family farms. And the thing is like what they've been doing hasn't been working. They have no structure. Their business is chaos. They have no idea where they're at financially. They don't know, how the bank makes decisions or how they can renegotiate interest rates. They don't know anything about this stuff. And it's because they've never been forced to. They've never been forced to. They've always typically had it easy because they've had the assets there. They've had the equity just show up. Whereas me, everything I have was built from a starting zero balance. Actually, it was like a negative balance because I went into debt in 2016 and 2017, figuring out and investing in myself to build this business. So I started out negative. So now every piece of equity that shows up on my balance sheet, it's my blood, sweat, and tears that went into that. So I have a different perspective and a different appreciation for what it took to create what we have inside of our world right now. And a lot of our members, when they first come in, that's the reality that I'm giving them. Some of them are first generation, right? And some of them had to start with nothing, just like I did. And I can guarantee you those people have a different perspective. My granddad, he started the operation from nothing. And I understand now, after having to build my business and start with nothing, why he did some of the things that he did, why he was the way that he was. I can understand it now because I've experienced it myself, because I haven't had anybody here to hold my hand. I haven't had anybody here to save me. I've had to invest my own capital, take my own risk, invest my own time, my own energy, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Because going through and doing that, I have developed a skill set and a perspective to where even if my business failed tomorrow, even if Legacy Farmer went under tomorrow, I have skill sets to where I could go build a similar business in a completely different industry and produce revenue within 30 days. Like I literally have that much confidence in myself because of the level of work I've had to do across every area of building a business. And it's not easy. But again, when our members are coming in, like I said, some of them are those second and third generation farmers. And I make it very clear from the get-go, guys, just because you're coming in here doesn't mean we're going to save you. Does not mean we can do the work for you. We will help you out in this process, and we will implement a lot of the systems with you. But ultimately, every person that comes into Legacy Farmer, I want them to walk away with skills and perspectives that are going to serve them for the next several decades of their career, and just valuable skills that they can even pass on to the next generation. Okay? Like we have to remove the safety net. We have to remove the cushion. And that's what, from my perspective, I look across this country and what's going on right now. Way too many people have this cushion and it builds this entitlement that they think they're just obligated and entitled, that they should have this and have that. That's not the way the world works. Like if you screw shit up, you will fail. There is risk involved, and there should be risk involved. Otherwise, the journey's not even worth it. If you don't get to overcome the challenges, you don't get to challenge yourself and grow as an individual and as a person, what's the purpose of life then? What makes the journey worth it? It's the obstacles that make it worth it for business owners like you and me. And it's overcoming those things and challenging ourselves and constantly just chasing this path of expansion and really becoming more in every area of our life. And, again, I did not truly start receiving the gifts that God had planned for me and the growth that he had planned for me until I accepted the very simple fact that nobody in this world is going to save me. And I look back at that right now. I wasted 2 to 3 years searching for somebody to save me when the reality was it was going to be me that had to solve this stuff, and it was going to be me that had to continue to double down, invest in myself, level up my skill sets, my mindsets, invest in networks so I have access to information so I can continue to learn more so that I could become the business owner that can truly build a business that is multi-generational, that can pass on to the next generation. Now, I could do a whole podcast on trying to make sure we instill the right life lessons into our kids. And again, my perspective on that has completely changed from what it was back in 2015 or 2014. We're all raised around like, oh, we got to leave something for our kids. My perspective has changed a little bit. Maybe I'll do a podcast on that. And if you want to hear a podcast on that, then shoot me an email and let me know, jason@legacyfarmer.org, because that would be a very contradictory point of view compared to what we've all raised to believe. But again, though, if you're in a position where you're passing on a bunch of wealth to your kids or a bunch of ground or whatever, how do you make sure that you instill the right lessons in their life so that they appreciate what they had? Because again, we talk about the farmers that just naturally were given equity. They look at that equity and their eyes get big and they're like, oh man, this is awesome. I can go borrow this and I can go buy this. Whereas when I look at that equity, I now understand that, hey, my granddad, worked for 30 years to produce that equity. There's 30 years of challenge and struggle and adversity and blood and sweat and tears, That's not me personally. My granddad died with nothing and passed away with nothing because of the bankruptcy and everything. But that's what a lot of farmers and ranchers are going to be facing with today. So my friend, at the end of the day, we all have to accept the simple fact that nobody's coming to save us, nor do we want anybody coming to save us, because when we do get saved, we're robbed of the lessons that God is intending for us to learn. We're robbed of growth inside of our life. We're robbed of developing skill sets and mindsets and perspectives that are really going to serve us over the next several decades. And that type of stuff is exactly what we're helping our members with inside of Legacy Farmer on. And it's great because my perspective now and my legacy is ultimately being able to really, truly impact these other family farm operations, right, from all across the country, which I don't know. For me right now, there's no greater calling in my life, and I'm grateful that God put this in front of me. So, my friend, hope you found this episode valuable. I hope you take action because of it, and we will catch you on the next one.